Tonight, tracking the suspects behind the multi-million-dollar cargo container heist at Pearson Airport.
Where was it coming from? Who had knowledge of the movement of this particular container?
They also would have had to have people on the inside.
We'll hear from the experts about the likely steps investigators are taking to catch the culprits behind the $20 million robbery. And
it'll be worth over $200 billion to the Canadian economy.
We need places to work, so I think it's great.
Ontario is getting a massive new electric vehicle plant. Details on what it will mean to the city at the center of it all. Plus,
it's not one person or one finger to point, and there's no pointing a finger at Nick.
he took the team to the heights they've never reached before. But Nick Nurse's time as coach of the Raptors has officially come to an end. Good evening. We're getting insight tonight into how investigators probing that multi-million-dollar gold heist at Pearson Airport will be trying to solve the case. It happened Monday when an aircraft's cargo was transferred to a holding facility and later stolen. Police say the shipment contained more than $20 million in gold and other valuables. Dale Manukduk has the latest.
Pearson Airport handles 45% of the country's air cargo, but only one has caught the eye of police, vanished from a holding facility earlier this week.
We really don't want to make an error and sort of focus on one particular area. We're kind of keeping a broad outlook on it, so we're looking at all angles on how this item was stolen.
This former cop says law enforcement banks on the human nature of thieves.
If they pulled it off, sometimes these people will have a tendency to brag, and sometimes that is the crack in the shield that would allow investigators to be able to pinpoint who actually might be involved, because the street might start to talk.
So far, there's no word from police on suspects, and no one has come forward to claim ownership of the highly valuable container. Peel police say that the RCMP's help is just a phone call away. Bourdois thinks their intelligence would be helpful.
Report over the years have clearly highlighted that organized crime has infiltrated airports, ports, or different points of entry within our country.
The Greater Toronto Airports Authority says the thieves accessed the public side of a warehouse that is leased to a third party and did not involve access to Toronto Pearson. But that doesn't mean that someone on the inside wasn't compromised, and police will look at that too.
It's usually something they know that type of shipment comes in on this day, on this flight, every week or every month. It goes to this warehouse. Here's how long it's in the warehouse before it ends up getting picked up.
Now the question is, how will the thieves get rid of the gold and other items? This gold dealer says it likely won't be in the country.
Any gold that's getting sold right now, it's the first thing everybody has on their mind. The industry is very regulated and everything is well tracked. So I don't think they'll be able to offload this stuff.
Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Toronto.
It's being called the largest electric vehicle investment ever in Canada. The federal government is giving German car manufacturer Volkswagen up to $13 billion in subsidies to create an electric battery plant in St. Thomas. The province is spending $500 million. As Lorenda Redicop tells us, both levels of government say it's worth it.
This stretch of rural land will soon be the site of a VW battery plant. So big, they're calling it not a mega factory, but a gigafactory, the size of 391 football fields. It'll be the largest factory in Canada.
It'll be worth over $200 billion to the Canadian economy over the coming decades.
The Prime Minister defends the huge $13 billion federal investment, saying it'll pay off in less than 5 years.
Everyone wanted this. So yes, we put up a lot of money that's going to come back in investments in economic activity very quickly.
3,000 people are expected to work at the plant, with another 30,000 indirect jobs created. This in a southwestern Ontario city of less than 50,000 people that lost thousands of auto jobs more than a decade ago. A Ford car plant, just one company that shut down, now an Amazon facility.
It really turned into a ghost town. A lot of neighbors moving and friends moving and a lot of places closing. So yeah, I think this is great.
As long as it ends up paying off in the long run, I think it'll be a good thing, because I mean, as long as there's the extra jobs to kick around, you're going to be seeing lots of more happy people.
The province of Ontario is adding $500 million in incentives to the company, promising to spend hundreds of millions more for infrastructure, roads, utilities, police, and fire. For the Premier, it's one piece of a sector he's trying to build up. The province is already investing in mining the minerals needed for making these batteries.
The cars of the future will be made right here in Ontario from start to finish, from mines to manufacturing by Ontario workers.
The Prime Minister is investing in a riding held federally by a Conservative who was at the announcement. He also took a political dig at the Leader of the Opposition.
Pierre Poilievre, the Leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, no relation to the Progressive Conservatives of Ontario, came out, sorry, that was a joke, you can chuckle, came out and said that this project was a waste of money.
The battery plant is set to open in 2027. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
A man is dead after being shot in Brampton last night.
So just after 7 p.m. this evening, we received a call for someone who had been shot in a parking lot in the area of Resolution Drive and Rutherford Road South in the city of Brampton. Officers arrived and did locate an adult male in the parking lot, and they were transported to a trauma center where they succumbed to their injuries.
Currently, there are no suspect details. The homicide unit has taken over the investigation. Anyone with information is asked to contact police. Peel police have charged a 16-year-old male after a road rage stabbing in Mississauga. Police were called to a plaza near Eglinton and Ridgeway around 6:30 p.m. on Wednesday. Upon arrival, they located a male with stab wounds. The victim was transported to hospital with serious injuries. Yesterday, a 16-year-old suspect turned himself into police and has been charged with aggravated assault. Investigations are ongoing. Housing advocates say the province is missing opportunities to build affordable housing by letting Metrolinx sell off surplus land to developers with few strings attached. As Clara Pasica reports, this includes land near the Danforth GO station.
The GO train passes by 8 Dawes Road, land until recently owned by Metrolinx. The Provincial Crown Corporation has been selling off surplus land near its stations to developers. Selling this public land to build more homes is something housing advocates are glad to see, but not this way.
The only parcel of land that is government owned or was government owned was this Metrolinx site right here. So the only opportunity for the government to actively create affordable housing in this neighborhood at size and at scale was on this parcel of land. When they sold the land, they didn't put any affordable housing requirement into the sale of the land.
This East End resident says the government missing opportunities to build affordable housing are why he's considering moving west, and not just to the other side of Yonge Street.
I think a lot of people have kind of given up on living in Toronto. That might be an unfortunate reality. The fact that we might not be able to live in Toronto. I currently live in my parents' basement. If I'm going to get a place on my own, I can't even look at Ontario for affordable housing. I might be forced to move west, Alberta, Saskatchewan. That's like a big conversation we're having.
The riding's MP says other levels of government have a solution for the province to steal.
This is not complicated. The city and the federal government, when there are public lands that are sold off, there's a percentage committed to affordability. Metrolinx could and should have done the same thing. The province could have ensured that Metrolinx did the same thing.
Marlin Springs CEO Pedro Lopez told CBC in a statement, the company had success voluntarily integrating affordable housing into a number of our projects recently. He says the company will be working with the city and community to make efforts to integrate community priorities into the project.
So the station is right over here.
But with Metrolinx expected to sell off more land as the Ontario line gets built, Richardson wants a process overhaul to bake in affordable housing guarantees.
But it shouldn't be based on the goodwill of the individual developer.
A spokesperson for the Minister of Transportation says the current process ensures that taxpayer dollars are respected. Clara Pasica, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, after 10 seasons with the team, Nick Nurse has been fired by the Toronto Raptors. While he led the team to its first ever NBA championship in 2019, the team struggled this year. Team president Masai Ujiri explained why Nurse was let go and why the team underperformed at his end-of-season press conference today, and our Greg Ross was there.
This year wasn't us. I think everybody saw that.
Raptors president Masai Ujiri said the decision to fire the coach that led his team to a championship 4 years ago was not an easy one, but he felt a shakeup was needed because his team had lost its way.
I did not enjoy watching this team play. The feel, the spirit of who we really are. It's been very disappointing for us. We gotta build spirit back here, like the culture, those things that bring us together.
Nurse spent 10 seasons with the Raptors, 5 as an assistant coach and 5 as the head coach. He had become quite popular amongst fans, many of whom were shocked by the news today.
Man, it's a sad day. Nick did a lot for the organization, for the city.
A complete surprise. I thought he would leave on his own. I didn't think he deserved to get fired.
He brought the first championship we've ever had, so tons of respect for the guy. I think he did a great job in his time here.
The Toronto Raptors! The Raptors have won only one playoff series since winning the championship under Nurse in 2019. This year, they finished 9th in the Eastern Conference. Ujiri says the blame for the team's recent problems does not rest solely on the shoulders of his outgoing coach.
It's not one person or one finger to point, and there's no pointing a finger at Nick. I have to take responsibility for this too, and as a leader of this organization, I will always do that.
The search for the Raptors' new head coach is now officially underway, and while there's been plenty of speculation about who that might be, Ujiri says he's going to take his time to ensure that the person who does replace Nurse is the right fit.
Whoever we're interviewing, whoever we're bringing in, has to, convince us of, a good style of play that we think, will fit us, fit our culture, fit at least some of our players or the players that we have.
Ujiri didn't rule out the potential for more big changes on the court this offseason. He says he would like to have his new coach in place before the NBA draft, which is scheduled for June 22nd. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Last night, the Leafs bounced back from their embarrassing Game 1 loss to the Tampa Bay Lightning, responding with a dominating performance in Game 2 to tie the series up. Leading the way, Captain John Tavares.
Cycles it back towards Tavares. He'll walk out in front. Backhand stop. Held loose. Scores! At the end of the 5-on-3, so it's a 5-on-4 power play goal, and it's 7-2.
That was Tavares' third goal, marking his first ever postseason hat trick. With last night's 7-2 victory, the Leafs now head to Tampa Bay for their next 2 games. Forward Zach Aston Reese says it's important for the team to remain focused on the road.
Just never too high, never too low. It's going to be an even harder game tomorrow night. I mean, we get smacked 7-3 and then we come out and do the same thing. So you got to expect they're going to respond. Their building's going to be rocking. It's going to be an even harder game for us.
With losing home ice advantage, the Leafs are now focused on taking at least one of the next 2 road games. Game 3 is set for tomorrow at 7 p.m. right here on CBC. Decent day today, Colette. Not much more to say than that.
Yeah, really decent early on. And, we're still holding on. But now things are changing, too. The radar is going to tell you that story in just a moment. The warmth, well, it's out there. And where some of it is into eastern Ontario. Kingston at 21, Oshawa 19, but Hamilton at 23, 19 for Toronto. Actually, where that rain has already been pushing in, seeing some temperatures kind of coming down there back towards the Windsor area, although the precipitation so far has been light there. So just giving you an idea of what's happening here with our current temperatures, we still have lots of pleasant readings. 16 Oshawa, a little bit cooler, and St. Catharines at 14, 16 for Hamilton, but Mississauga at Pearson, 17, Toronto, seeing that as well. And how about 20 on the board there for Markham still? But This is what's changing, a dramatic change from how we started off today, the rain incoming. So if we take a bigger look at this, you can see how it's not just a little bit. There's a stream of this coming up from the U.S., and we'll have waves of that rain pushing through. Some of the heaviest may well be up to the eastern shores of Georgian Bay, portions of Muskoka, Parry Sound, through that region as this is going to carry on. See those there too? Some lightning strikes. So some embedded thunderstorms here where locally some heavier amounts possible. So we get a wave comes through, we get a break, we get another wave, and this is really how it's going to go tonight and into tomorrow as well. And our temperatures, we're looking at those being, well, a little below seasonal, not for the overnight lows, but for these daytime highs, Maribel.
Okay, well, that 20 was nice while we had it.
Yeah, it was. We'll cut it in half tomorrow.
Oh, goodness. Okay, thanks, Colette. Tomorrow is Earth Day, and that means community cleanups will be taking place throughout the city. Ali Chiasson has more on the city's green initiatives.
Cleaning up a park, I know it may seem small, but it is change.
Small initiatives, big impact.
My office is right down the street, and I really want to do something to make a impact within my community.
Our team at Unite for Change is helping to clean the Grange Park and really trying to bring awareness to climate change initiatives. I think we all could be doing more in terms of taking action against climate change. Ahead of Earth Day, the city has launched a Live Green initiative. There's an online portal where you can learn about cleanups happening in your area, as well as tips for reducing waste and more information about what the city is doing to reach net zero emissions.
To protect our city and the things we love, we need to work together.
We have two very important environmental initiatives underway. The first is Transform TO, our strategy to have net zero emissions by 2040. And the second is our Ravine strategy, which is looking at how we can clean and green our parks in a better way.
Deputy Mayor Jennifer McKelvey joined high school students in Scarborough for their community cleanup today.
It wasn't a thing when I was growing up.
There's a lot of trash in here. I'm very disappointed.
Kids these days tend to be greener and wiser.
We learned a lot about how microplastics affect the environment and how bad they are.
Every day you should be throwing out garbage that you see on the floor, even if it isn't yours.
Yeah.
To stop pollution.
And if you're part of the problem, you gotta be part of the solution.
Not wanting to burden the younger generation to clean up after our bad habits is a good motivator.
It goes one of both ways. It's either you have extreme climate anxiety where you're like, wow, the world is burning, I guess I'll just ignore it. Or people are doing what they can to make active change.
Turns out climate action is a good cure for climate anxiety. Check out the city's website for more ways to get involved. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
Premier Doug Ford's government is opening the door to allowing underground carbon capture in Ontario. It's a way of fighting climate change by trapping and storing greenhouse gas emissions.
When we look forward to the future, those hard-to-abate industries will really need natural gas to continue to function. So carbon capture is a great way for those businesses to continue to use natural gas, but also to significantly reduce their emissions.
The government brought in legislation to repeal Ontario's previous ban on injecting carbon dioxide underground. It's now proposing rules for carbon capture pilot projects. The process involves capturing industrial emissions of CO2, compressing them into liquid, then putting them deep into the earth. Ontario's Minister of Natural Resources calls carbon capture a big opportunity for the province. A range of companies and business lobby groups encouraged the government to lay the groundwork for starting carbon capture in Ontario. The city unveiling new infrastructure today to help make the TTC greener.
We are unveiling 10 newly commissioned battery electric bus charging pantographs, expanding the TTC's charging capacity, and adding another garage to the TTC's e-bus portfolio. These new pantographs will support overhead charging, allowing electricity to be delivered from a centralized power source to chargers mounted on top of battery electric buses.
The Deputy Mayor was on hand at the TTC's Birchmount Garage in Scarborough for the announcement. The charging system is a first phase of a 20-year agreement between the TTC and Power On Energy Solutions, which is a subsidiary of Ontario Power Generation. The TTC plans to transition its bus fleet to 100% zero emissions by 2040. McKelvey says the transit system already has one of the largest e-bus fleets in North America. Twitter seems to have reversed a policy where it labeled CBC and other public broadcasters as government-funded media. It comes after public broadcasters around the world objected. According to Twitter's definition, governments could have varying degrees of involvement over editorial content. CBC is publicly funded, and that funding is voted on by all MPs. But the government has no involvement in its editorial content or journalism. Twitter also removed the label from state-controlled media in China and Russia. As for the CBC, its Twitter accounts remain on hold. A statement from CBC's head of public affairs says, "We are reviewing this latest development and will leave our accounts on pause before taking any next steps." A French court has sentenced an Ottawa man to life in prison over a bombing in Paris more than 40 years ago. Hassan Diab was found guilty in absentia. Authorities accused Diab of being involved in the 1980 bombing of a synagogue, leaving 4 dead and more than 40 injured. Today's verdict is the latest in a long legal struggle for the Ottawa academic. Rafi Boudjikanian reports.
Hassan Diab and his supporters started their day daring to think they would be turning the page on his ordeals.
We are always hopeful that, the reason will prevail.
Then came the wait for word from a court in Paris.
Don.
Do these folks know?
We don't know. What's the decision?
Yeah.
Verdict is guilty.
I can't imagine going through this over and over and over, as if it's, condemned by the gods. That's what I feel.
The case relates to this. In October 1980, a suspect placed a bomb at a synagogue in Paris, killing 4 people and wounding 46 others. After years of investigation, Diab was arrested in 2008 in Canada, which extradited him to France 6 years later. He spent 3 years in prison without being formally charged, before judges ruled the evidence to bring him to trial was too weak, finding he was likely in Lebanon at the time of the bombing and his handwriting did not match evidence in the case. Ottawa ordered a review of why he was sent to France.
What happened to him never should have happened. This is something that obviously was an extremely difficult situation to go through for himself, for his family, and that's why we've asked for an independent external review and make sure that it never happens again.
Words Diab's loved ones want the Prime Minister to remember.
I'd want him to honour his words and prevent a second extradition.
While in Paris, survivors of the bombing had a much different take. I remember putting the flames on a motorcyclist's legs out with a bag, this woman said. Let Mr. Diab come and defend himself here if he's not guilty.
Diab's legal team says he's not out of options to appeal the verdict, and the Prime Minister commented to say his government will look carefully at next steps, but will always stand up for Canadians' rights. There's been no word yet the French government has made a new extradition request. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
Ontario's Ministry of Health has launched an investigation into how paramedics in southwestern Ontario responded to a Toronto police raid that left a gunsmith dead. The ministry says an investigation is ongoing into how Norfolk County paramedics responded to the shooting of Roger Katanko in November of 2021. A Toronto police officer shot the 70-year-old while carrying out a search warrant at Katanko's gunsmithing workshop. Police raided the location after alleging Katanko illegally removed the serial numbers off 2 guns involved in crimes. The Special Investigations Unit later cleared police of any wrongdoing. Katanko's family has filed a $23 million lawsuit alleging the raid was unlawful. The strike by tens of thousands of federal public workers is in its third day. Picket lines are set up at hundreds of locations across the country, including in St. Thomas, Ontario, where the Prime Minister made an announcement about the Volkswagen electric battery plant to be built there. And as you can see from the messages on the signs, they're not happy about Ottawa giving Volkswagen millions in subsidies to set up the plant there when they're on strike fighting for higher wages. More than 150,000 federal workers went on strike Wednesday. Wages and remote work are key issues for the union. About 50,000 workers have been deemed essential and are still on the job. Some federal services are affected, like immigration processing, food inspections, and tax returns. Defense Minister Anita Anand today announced a new $39 million military assistance package for Ukraine. It came during a NATO meeting in Germany. Abby Kovasan reports.
Canada has pledged $39 million in support for Ukraine today. Most of that money will go towards non-lethal aid like first aid kits. About $2.5 million will be used to purchase sniper rifles and ammunition from a company based in Winnipeg. Another $2 million will go towards radios for the Leopard tanks that Ottawa has already donated. Meanwhile, Germany, Poland, and Ukraine have signed an agreement to finance a hub where Leopard tanks used by Ukrainian soldiers can be repaired. German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius says the hub will cost up to 200 million euros annually, and operations could start at the end of May. Denmark and the Netherlands have now committed 14 Leopard 2s to Ukraine as well. And U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin says allies part of this contact group, which includes officials from more than 40 nations, have provided more than 230 tanks so far. Washington previously pledged some of its own Abrams tanks. Austin announced today the U.S. will start training Ukrainian soldiers soon.
We've also expedited our M1 Abrams timelines to supply Ukraine with more armored capability in the coming months. And the M1s that the Ukrainians will use for training will arrive here in Germany in the next few weeks. Thank you so much.
NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg has now confirmed that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will attend the alliance's annual summit in July. Stoltenberg also reiterated that Ukraine will one day join NATO, but said the focus right now is to help Kyiv defeat Moscow. Abby Kovasan, CBC News, London.
Russia's military is admitting to a mistake that sent 2 people to hospital. A Russian warplane bombed one of its own cities. That is a look at the explosion caught on security camera in the city of Belgorod. That is just 40 kilometers from the border with Ukraine. Russia's defense ministry confirms the blast was caused by a Russian warplane, saying it, quote, accidentally discharged aircraft ordnance last night. The explosion left a crater 20 meters wide and blasted a car onto a nearby roof. The Russian governor says 2 women were taken to hospital, but there's no word on fatalities. And Sudan's military appears to be rejecting a ceasefire offer. This is video showing government forces on the move in Khartoum. It's the first time the army's ground forces have deployed to the capital in the week of deadly clashes with a paramilitary group. The Rapid Support Forces are proposing a 72-hour ceasefire to mark the end of Ramadan. But there are fresh reports of fighting. In another development, the World Health Organization reports that more than 400 people have been killed and more than 3,500 wounded in the fighting. So it's not sounding like it's going to be a hot, sunny weekend like the one we had last weekend.
Yeah, and so not great timing, is it? That now we have the rain that's moving in. Things are going to improve into Sunday, but tonight and tomorrow dealing with this. And one of the areas, if you are going to be traveling this weekend, heading into cottage country, areas like Huntsville, Parry Sound, Bracebridge, even up towards North Bay, Sudbury, that's where some of the heaviest rain is likely. So Environment Canada has issued a special weather statement. When you put it all all together, all the waves of it, it may be well over 30 millimeters in some of these areas. And you can see just one of those heavier batches with locally some of these downpours a little bit stronger that just pushed in north of Midland there. So lots more to come, kind of waves pushing in. It moves north and it moves east, but not very quickly. And that's why we'll have these periods of rain. Some lightning strikes in here too. If you hear a rumble of thunder, don't be surprised. And that's why pockets get more than other areas. It's putting the squeeze on the milder air to the eastern side of this front and then back to the west where temperatures are cooling down a little bit. And we'll see our temperatures coming down. I posed this or paused it at right around 8 p.m. So some heavier downpours through the GTA at that time this evening. Think about that for your evening plans. Then it gets a little lighter. We'll have another wave coming through. And it looks like through the overnight, it gets heavier into tomorrow morning to about midday. And then we see some of these showers still lingering. Later on Saturday, even into Sunday, there'll be some instability. So we'll still have a chance of getting an isolated shower here or there, but we'll also get some sun coming back out. So kind of a mix of sun and cloud through the day into Sunday. Rainfall accumulations, there's really this swath where some of the heaviest is anticipated. So yes, Huntsville is included in this, but you'll notice Brampton potentially more than 20 or even 25 millimeters there. London, St. Thomas through that region, and even back towards just kind of on the shoulder of that with Chatham-Kent there. 5-day forecast, here it is. I know, we had all that heat last week. So then when you see this, it's sort of like, really 5 days where the temperatures are below seasonal with the daytime highs, also with the lows as well. There is that improvement for Sunday. You'll have time and good conditions to be outside, but it's just a little bit cooler as we go into next week. Now into about maybe not Thursday, but Friday, those temperatures rebound as we get to the end of this month and into the month of May.
Where the flowers are supposed to be blooming then. Okay, thanks for all the rain then.
Yes, yeah, you're welcome.
Well, the rise and fall of BlackBerry is the subject of a new movie premiering in our city tonight. Glenn Howerton and Jay Baruchel star in the film as company founders Jim Balsillie and Mike Lazaridis. Our Eli Glasner joins us live from the Tiff Bell Lightbox tonight. Eli, a local story getting the Hollywood treatment.
The most local of local stories, how this little phone that could, you might remember, it had the little buttons, you pressed it with your thumbs. BlackBerry, this is amazing film, very much the rise and fall of this movie. And this is not like a dour business story. This is kind of a riot, a bit of a comedy, really. We had a chance to talk to one of the reporters who wrote the book that inspired this film, and she was actually quite surprised just how funny it is. Now, talking about comedy, we had a chance to chat with, as you mentioned, Glenn Howerton. You might know him from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, but a total transformation, becoming Jim Balsillie. Now, this is the guy, like there were two parts of the BlackBerry story. There's Mike, the inventor, and there was Jim, who was very much the deal maker. You could call him a bit of a business shark. So quite the character for Glenn to step into, but the real Jim was here on the carpet tonight. So, you know, we were asking him, how are you feeling about meeting your subject? Take a listen.
As I'm walking up to him, I was look in his eyes and see if he's gonna, like, you know, try to tear me apart, or if he's gonna be, you know, be like, hey man, that was fun, you know, or if he's gonna be like, hey man, you really made me look like a jerk, you know. I don't know, but it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be interesting.
I'm happy to report we saw the two of them together on the carpet, looked like best buddies, seemed very genial, and I did get a chance to ask Glenn backstage. They said they didn't talk about the movie. No, not of course they didn't. So they're all getting along quite wonderfully, but wonderful to see the actor who had to shave his head to become Jim, and then the real Jim here.
Okay, I'm glad they're getting along so far. We will talk about the movie, I guess, when they do. Canadian story, so there's Canadian talent, of course. Who are you able to talk to on the carpet tonight?
You know, it was a very busy carpet. Mark Critch plays Gary Bettman of the NHL, believe it or not. That was a lot of fun to chat about, playing the NHL commissioner. Matt Johnson, the amazing director, Toronto's own. You know him from Operation Avalanche, The Dirties, talking about this being kind of one of the most ambitious, but I think rewarding movies he has ever made. But Jay Baruchel, hometown boy, living here in Toronto, it is so special for him. This movie has already premiered at South by Southwest and other places, but to have this story of Canadian greatness here at the Lightbox, well, as you hear, that was something.
It's the best. It's crazy. It's so lovely. It just is like we made a thing and we're proud of the thing and people seem to want to see the thing and people that have seen it like it. So it's all love right now, especially because this is a hometown crowd. So my mom's here, my stepfather's here, both sets of my in-laws are here. Like everybody's here. It's lovely.
You can see Jay Baruchel, he's just kind of vibrating. It's a very special moment, and I would say it is a very special film. I will be reviewing it when it comes out. March 12th is the date, but this is a film all about Canadian pride and a phone that really changed the world and something that is kind of come back to life here at the Lightbox.
And maybe we'll tell the generations what the BlackBerry was and why it was so important for
One
so
day,
many.
sit
right?
around the campfire and listen to us oldsters talk about the days when phones had keyboards you could press with your thumb.
Oh, so long ago, but not really. Thanks, Eli. Well, also Canada's own Ryan Reynolds is beloved by fans worldwide for his work on the big screen. And he's proving that he's not just a movie star. As Peter Armstrong reports, Reynolds has also been hard at work building a business empire.
It's about the future.
It's a good time to be in the business of Ryan Reynolds.
Canadians are terrible at self-promotion.
Well, some are, but this guy is not.
I'm introducing Aviation American Gin.
He sold his gin company for $825 million. He sold this mobile phone company for $1.7 billion.
Are you on social media?
And this week, Reynolds invested in this Canadian fintech company.
It's time for a global tech company from Canada.
No, we're more of a payments company, right?
Cue the music.
Reynolds is best known as a Hollywood actor in films like Deadpool. But this weekend, Reynolds aims to become a football legend in a small Welsh town called Wrexham. Reynolds and fellow actor Rob McElhenney bought this floundering club for $3 million. The club's been relegated to the lowly National League, the fifth tier of the English Football League system. But with a win tomorrow, the club will finally be promoted out of the basement and take one step closer to the upper echelons of the Premier League.
The world of the Premier League to the fourth, fifth tier, or even where they are in the non-league, is a world, is a massive gulf.
This former player turned podcast host says getting promoted means more profile, more sponsorships. But the higher Wrexham climbs, the more the owners will be asked to spend.
You need to be almost an oil state, where you do, really, to be able to compete.
Reynolds doesn't have pockets quite that deep. What he does have is a seemingly endless supply of charm and genuine connection to the brands he gets involved in.
The links between sport and entertainment and the lines between them are very much blurred.
And Reynolds intends on blurring them further. His name has been attached to nearly every conversation about who will buy the Ottawa Senators.
It's very expensive. So, you know, I need a partner with, really deep pockets.
But that need cuts both ways. The deep pockets need a charming frontman to get the deal done, and along the way, the charming frontman's pockets are getting deeper too. Peter Armstrong, CBC News, Toronto.
It is Eid al-Fitr, an important day for the Muslim community.
Well, today we are here to celebrate Eid. It's the festivals after the Ramadan. We just completed a whole month of fasting, and today we are celebrating the festival. It consists of 3 days, and we're here to celebrate it with the family and with everybody else, with all of our Muslim brothers and sisters.
An Eid festival was held at the Better Living Center today. Over 15,000 Muslims attended the festivities. The day began with a large congregational prayer, followed by fun activities for families. The event was organized by the Muslim Association of Canada. And as we head to break, here's a look at where the markets closed out the week. The TSX climbed 62 points. The Dow was also up 22 points, and the dollar traded down to 73.85 cents US. We'll be right back. After the long and cold winter months, Canadians from coast to coast are welcoming signs of spring. In some places, it can mean finding a barely recognizable lawn when unwanted visitors move in underground during the winter months. Nampande Lande has more on the story.
This is what Island Lakes resident Gina Remillard found underneath all of the snow in her backyard. Voles had completely eaten up her lawn.
I was a little horrified because it means a whole summer of trying to reseed and nurture the lawn again.
Voles are small, chunky, mouse-like rodents who tunnel and nest underground and like to munch on roots and seeds. They like long grass and low decks, which provide them with warmth and protection from predators in the winter. They can cause significant damage to lawns, plants, and trees.
This is essentially like their food storage.
Susie Reimer has been doing pest control with her company, Valkyrie Pest Solutions, for 9 years. Susie says the best treatment for voles is prevention.
So eliminating the amount of vegetation in the yard, definitely do not have bird feeders because that's a surefire way to bring them in. And then just eliminating places for them to hide so that they don't have so many places to just quickly dart into.
Susie prefers what she calls mechanical solutions, like putting netting in the ground around fences and decks and trimming bushes and trees a good 2 feet up from the base. Just cutting your lawn very short before the first snowfall and getting rid of bird feeders will make a huge difference. Homeowners can also place snap traps in the voles' tunnels. And Susie says, as a last resort, they can put poison in the traps.
To repair the damage, they can rake and reseed the lawn, but make sure to place traps near any of the new pathways that the voles may be using. Nampande Lande, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A busy group of young people in Montreal is working to protect the bee population, and at the center of their efforts is a place the bees can call home. Kwabina Oduro reports.
This is the new bug hotel, and it will be infested with insects soon enough. But in this case, they are welcomed here, and these little managers were getting everything set up for their new clientele.
For me, bug is really important because we can't live without. So because the bee produces the honey and things like that, so I think it's good to thank stuff for the work and what he did for us.
That's why last year these students at Abdelard de Rosier wrote letters to the borough mayor. They wanted the borough to help them with a project to protect bees and the biodiversity of their neighborhood.
I really hate bees. I don't like them. But when I did this project, like, it got more interesting and I can know more about them.
On top of the bug hotel, students asked for more flowers to be planted, less pesticides used on plants, and in May they don't want the grass to be cut, so the bees can harvest pollen from dandelions.
I am very happy to find this young people with their involvement and commitment in our society, and to have like in their hearts the issue about the environment, the issue of biodiversity.
This hotel is self-check-in and out. Bees and other insects are welcome to sleep, nest, and hang out here. Unfortunately, meals are not included.
Well, to me, it's important for the bees, but for the whole planet, the ecosystem. As we know, with the pollution, everything, it's not going so great. So I think that every little thing we can do to help, we should be doing.
As the hotel is up and running, the children are hoping that the bees will come, and to attract them, they're playing music.
Yes, for you. Yeah, for you.
Kwabina Oduro, CBC News, Montreal.
Horses and hoofbeats are back this weekend at Woodbine Racetrack.
This year we're returning to our roots with the King's Plate on August 20th. It's been over 70 years since it's been run as the King's Plate, but we're pretty excited about returning to a bit of tradition and history in that respect, and have a lot of great plans to bring that back.
Horses and riders out training early this morning, getting ready for the start of the season. The action begins tomorrow and continues Sunday. Racing will take place only on weekends through April. In May, the schedule expands with live racing Thursday through Sunday. We heard from a trainer about what's involved in getting the horses ready.
Many early mornings. The crew usually gets here around 4 o'clock in the morning and starts taking care of the horses. We've got a number of horses to train, a few hours between the hours of 6 and 10 o'clock, at which point their grooms would typically brush them off and feed them. And several hours later, we'd have to come back to take them over for the races. So it's quite an involved process.
And while the animals have the spotlight, this weekend Woodbine also has other plans to attract audiences this year. A new casino is being built on site, along with a 5,000-seat concert hall and luxury hotel. All of that is expected to open this summer. Although I think it's going to be a soggy run for those horses this weekend.
Yeah, I think it is going to be. Tonight and tomorrow are really when we're going to be seeing a lot of these periods of rain, and tomorrow night it carries on into eastern Ontario. But hey, tomorrow is Earth Day. Lots of activities for Earth Day into Sunday. Weather conditions will improve. If you're looking for something to do, maybe take a trip to Stratford. It's Trashin' Week in Stratford this week, and on Sunday they have 2 eco-friendly fashion shows. So they actually make fashion out of repurposing different items. And one of our viewers, Kathy, is going to be there with her piece, which is called Malt of the Earth. It is a dress made out of beer caps, and it's actually really cute. So there's something going on for you. Saturday, 12 with those periods of rain, 10 on Sunday, and then it is cool as we go into next week. And Maribel, by the way, I wanted that shout out to Kathy because she's doing this in honor of her son, Samuel, who passed away last year, and it's a really sweet project.
Oh, that's lovely, and something for people to catch west of the city. Okay, thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
And that's our show for you tonight. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you back here Monday.